Hey, Lee Robinson here from American Sentinel K9. Thank you for tuning in. In this video, we're going to look at how endocrinology is impacted by different types of stimulus when an individual is in a combative situation, or if they're hunting, or if they're in a defensive situation. These are three different types of situations. Most trainers would agree that prey drive and defense drive exists. Some do not believe in fight drive. So we're going to look at these aspects in a graph that I put together. I wrote about this topic several years ago because from personal experience, I can tell as I reflect on what's going on within me when I'm in different situations, I could just feel that these three types of situations, whether it be fight or hunting or defense, these types of situations are a little bit different. And this also deals with active aggression. But we're going to look at some charts, and then hopefully this chart will help. Now, like I said, I wrote about this topic several years ago, but I've done some more research on it lately. For those of you that don't know my background, I have 2 degrees in animal sciences. I studied a lot of reproductive physiology, genetics, and also behavior. And to do this, we had to study endocrinology. So we're going to look at this PDF file that I put together. We have 7 hormones that we're going to look at here: epinephrine, cortisol, aldosterone, endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and testosterone. All 7 of these hormones are impacted in combative situations. So the primary purpose of epinephrine is to provide immediate energy and hyper alertness for survival. So obviously, if you're in a fight, or freeze situation, this is going to be a hormone that spikes. All right, so we're going to expect a peak surge in a combative situation of epinephrine. Cortisol mobilizes long-term energy, glucose, and manages inflammation. So this also would be beneficial in a combative situation, especially if that combative situation was expected to take place over a sustained period. Now, both epinephrine and cortisol are produced in the adrenal gland. Next, we have aldosterone, which is also produced in the adrenal gland. This is going to rise because we want to make sure that there's plenty of blood pressure in the combative situation. So right off the bat, you'll notice out of these 7 hormones, 3 of them are controlled in the adrenal gland. Next, we have endorphins. What is the purpose of an endorphin? Well, it dulls the pain. It acts as a natural anesthetic to allow movement despite injury. This is going to also be involved in predatory animals when they're hunting. If they're running over thorns or something like that, running through the woods and they get injury, the endorphins can sometimes prevent them from noticing that they have an injury. I'm sure most men and women as well that are very physical have probably sustained an injury, a bruise, or a cut, and they didn't even know it until they were done. That's because the endorphins involved in that situation. Dopamine is a hormone that kind of works like a reward. So it can drive your focus towards a specific goal and reinforces successful actions and behaviors. Serotonin, it stabilizes the mood. It regulates your impulse control. It has to deal with social hierarchy and also an emotional calm. Now, you might think, well, why would you want that in a combative situation? Well, remember, if your serotonin levels are not at the right level, then you may panic, and panic is a good way to lose a situation. So being comfortable in combat is important in order to be strategic and successful. So during a fight, we'll notice that the epinephrine maximizes heart rate and blood pressure. The cortisol mobilizes energy and suppresses non-essential systems. So this is going to improve efficiency. All right, so it suppresses like allergies. It opens up your respiratory system. So does the epinephrine. Both of those will do that. So to get your oxygen in and help you metabolize energy and have a efficient circulatory and cardiovascular system. Then we have our endorphins, masks physical pain, acting as a natural narcotic. Dopamine, during a fight, sharpens and focuses the goal-oriented drive to win. Okay, so you can't tell me that these factors do not play a role when it comes to gameness. All of these factors, by the way, are going to be impacted by genetics, which tells us that gameness is going to be polygenic. Polygenic is means a trait that is controlled by many genes. We have 7 hormones here. They're going to be impacted by the genetics of the individual as well as the experiences that this individual has. So you might think experiences, well, we'll get to that. Next, during a fight, serotonin may be low, which helps facilitate, believe it or not, low serotonin can actually facilitate initial aggression. It's like if your serotonin levels are high, you're less likely to be impulsive. But if it spikes, you can maintain control aggression. So you have an initial reaction when your serotonin's low, but once you realize you're in a situation that's going to last a while, serotonin will go up, and that'll get you at a controlled level of aggression so you don't panic, because you don't want to be impulsive the whole time. This is probably something that grapplers or MMA fighters experience, because if you lose your cool, you're going to be in trouble. Right? So you need to be a strategic and thinking individual in combat. So initially, low levels can cause impulsive aggression and active aggression, but once it's going on, you need to stabilize that in order to be able to be calm and collective. And then testosterone can rise, enhance aggression, and also muscle performance. It also, we'll look at the post effect. The winner rapidly returns to a baseline. The epinephrine will rapidly return to normal. It can like shut off. But yet in the loser, the epinephrine stays what's called residual hypervigilant, which means it can cut on and cut off and cut on and cut off in case that threat comes back. In case that threat comes back, it's ready to cut back on if it needs it. So it can be produced again. And this causes prolonged fatigue, makes this individual really exhausted and depleted. For cortisol, stress levels drop as the conflict is resolved. So both of these are stress-related hormones that improve the ability to perform, but they also, in the winner, these subside. However, in the loser, these levels stay elevated for both of these stress-related hormones. So there's an impact there on that individual's hormonal behavior in the future. So this is going to affect the learning process. What the animal, how it views combat the next time is going to be impacted by its success or failure from last time. So the aldosterone doesn't have a major change here between a winner and a loser, but these stress-related hormones certainly do. Next, endorphins. Well, let's look at the difference here. Victory has a high, a physical high. The pain is masked. They don't notice it. But in the winner, as these hormones decline, that's because dopamine is going up. As dopamine spikes, they feel a reward. This combative situation led to success, and they feel good about it, which reinforces this behavior in the future. In the loser, however, when the endorphins drop, they really begin to feel that pain as both the endorphins and the adrenaline goes down. All right, and then this also crashes. There's no dopamine in losing because you don't feel rewarded when you lost a battle. In fact, it can lead to depression, low motivation, and lethargy. All right, now testosterone. What happens to the winner and the loser? Well, in the winner, testosterone levels tend to go up, and in the loser, testosterone levels tend to plummet because they want to avoid aggressive situations that cause them to get hurt again in the future. Here we're not looking at a combative situation, but we're looking at something very similar, prey drive in a predatory animal. Now I switched the table. Here we have during the hunt, post-hunt success. So this is like the winner, and then this is like the loser. The prey got away. And we're going to look at these same 7 hormones, but we've now put them on the side. So during the hunt, it surges. This is similar to before. Cortisol surges, which is similar before to the combative situation. Aldosterone rises, which is similar before. Endorphins peak. Dopamine is high. Serotonin is low. Okay, so in the combative situation, these first 5 are high. During the hunt, we see the same basic hormonal changes during the hunt that we saw during a fight. What about post-hunt, when they're successful versus post-hunt failure? Does post-hunt success in hunting have similar relationships to post-combat success? So we have 3 that go down, 1 that stays basically the same, and then 3 that go up. Let's look at the hunt. Notice the cortisol actually stayed high on a successful hunt. That's kind of surprising to me, to be honest with you. It says remains elevated to aid in the high energy task of process. Oh, okay, that makes sense, because even though the hunt is over, it has to process the consumption of the animal. So it's probably still a little bit elevated in a wild situation, especially. Can you imagine some hyenas having to eat their food while lions may be coming in? So they probably, this makes a little sense actually, and that's in that type of mindset. But we saw that the first three went down in the combative situation, but here the second one stays a little bit up. But then the next one was the middle one was neutral. Well, here it drops rapidly, because remember, this was not actually combat, so it doesn't really need the pain response that it had for combat in a hunt, right? Because most prey are not going to be able to harm the predator very much. Some may, but most are not. And then the last three went up, and here again the last three go up. So the hunt is actually pretty similar to the combat. Now, you might think, well, why is that relative? Well, remember, a lot of people think that when you're in combat, you're actually using defense drive. And here we see that combat is actually very similar to hunting. Now, what about the failure? This is going to be an individual that was hunting, but it was just the animal got away. They just didn't get the reward. So how does this compare to combative failure? So we have the loser, we got steady, up, down, 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 down. So steady, up, down, 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 down. So the first one is going to stay pretty much the same, but it's going to be ready to go on and off, on and off, on and off. Cortisol is going to stay up, and the rest of them go down. Well, here we have stays the same, high, and then down, 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 and down. So again, the hunting where the prey gets away is similar to combat. All right, so let's look at the key differences. My apologies for the logo being in the way. So the key difference is the provisioning effect in humans and social predators. Cortisol stays high after a successful hunt, not because of the stress, but because the body is still working and butchering or carrying out to protect the food. Dopamine as a teacher, remember the dopamine, if it stays high, you have the feel-good response. It's going to reward that behavior. For a predator, the post-success dopamine spike isn't just about feeling good. It's biological reinforcement that teaches the brain that this specific hunting ground or technique is viable. So an animal can actually learn to display a behavior if that behavior leads to success. And that success can cause the testosterone and other hormones to change as well. The cost of failure in the combative table, a loser experiences a social status drop. For predators, post-failures is a metabolic crisis. The drop in testosterone or dopamine is the body's way of forcing the animal to stop moving and stop wasting calories. Dopamine is suppressed in the defensive situation, which means this is not a pleasurable experience. Reward systems are shut down. The focus is purely on the negative stimulus of the predator. So there's no pleasure here, unlike the predatory response or the combative response. The serotonin is also low. Low levels facilitate impulsive, reflex-based movement required for split-second escape. So serotonin and dopamine are both low in the defensive situation. There's no reward in any of these. No dopamine, no serotonin spikes in defense. In prey, serotonin is low initially and increases. So this right here, low and then high and then high and then high. Let's remember dopamine's high and high, serotonin's low and high. Dopamine is low and low, serotonin is low and low. Okay, so quite a bit different. What about in combat? Okay, so we've got dopamine first. Here we can see, again, during a fight, high, high, it crashes for the loser, low but may spike, and then high. So we have a feel-good response in these situations during a fight and if you're a winner. So we see that the fight response, even though it's intense like defense, it actually has a lot of hormonal behaviors that are very similar to prey, but it's more intense. So now, why do I list all these? Well, what we can see here is all of these hormonal levels are controlled by the genetics, but also we can see the experience, whether they're caught or whether they get away, okay? Whether they win or whether they lose. So this means genetics plays a role, but so does the experience. So does the schooling, so does the training, so does the combative situations. These things will change this animal's view about future encounters. Also, the genetic impact from these hormones means it's polygenic because each one of these traits are controlled by different genes. This tells us that gameness, whether it be fight drive or prey drive or defense or a combination of the three, is indeed going to be a polygenic trait. All right, so there you go on a hormonal profile. I have this in a PDF. If somebody wants a copy of it, you can study it, but this has been actually been studied quite a bit in psychology. All right, so let's look at my chat forum that I've created on my website. So you go click here and just go to discussions. We have a mission statement and a code of ethics. Here we list why you should join the discussion forum. Look, you can come here to share input. You can come here to learn something. You can sell used canine equipment. You can hook up with your different trainers and breeders or canine transporters. But if you're going to participate in this forum, we do have a code of ethics statement that I would like to briefly discuss. And with that said, the mission of the ASC discussion forum is to create a community for productive people seeking to produce better dogs by breeding and training. We're going to talk real briefly about our policies here, but remember that poor minds talk about people. I don't want to deal with gossip. Average minds talk about things that have happened, but great minds talk about ideas because we're trying to learn, look at theory and fact and science. So with that said, let's keep this board professional. The rules are very simple. It's about treating people the way you wanted to be treated. And to do that, I actually think social media platforms allow anonymous accounts in order to get the Jerry Springer effect. They know that when people can talk trash without being accountable, they will do it more often. And that elicits emotional response from people that get hostile and they just want to come back. Who's got to have the last? We're not doing that on our platform. We're looking for education. We're looking for people to share what they have to share, to learn what they need to learn, and have a productive atmosphere. So we're going to not allow any aliases. You need to use your name as your login username, or if you don't want to do that, you can go to your profile by clicking here and click Edit Profile. So let's say you want your full name to be your dog's name or your canine business, whatever. No problem. Just come down here into the About Me section and put your name there. I want to know that the members in this group are actually real people. And if you want to view your profile when you get done, you can click on your name and it'll show your profile right here. So anybody that wants to see, hey, who is so-and-so, they can click on the person. If, let's say I had American Sentinel K9 here, you could come down here and scroll and then say, my name's Lee Robinson, blah, blah, blah. But since I put my name here, I come down here and I say, founder of American Sentinel K9. So that was one of the requirements. I don't want to allow any aliases on my group. You need to put your name on it. If you don't believe it enough to put your name on it, don't say it. Do not trash talk other breeders or trainers. If you have a legitimate gripe about someone, you better have evidence before you post that claim here. If you're going to show a statement to validate your claim that's derogatory against somebody, you need to have it in context, because I believe innocent until proven guilty, and proven guilty is not based off of opinion or inconclusive evidence or hearsay. You need complete evidence, real documentation to make before you say something bad on my forum. All right. Next, please be careful when asking questions that compare breeder or trainer ABC with breeder or trainer XYZ. What's best for one program may not be what's best for someone else. People have different preferences, and that's okay. So avoid using words like better. Instead, just keep your terms objective. Like, I need a dog that's very agile. I need a dog that has high heat tolerance. I need a dog with great endurance. A lot of times there's a trade. So when you see somebody that says, I want a dog that's great at everything, okay, so you want the strongest, most powerful dog, which is anaerobic work, and then you want great endurance, which is aerobic work. Well, those two types tend to not go together. You can have usually really good anaerobics or really good aerobics, but a lot of times you rob Peter to pay Paul when you get a balance of the two that may be a good yin and yang balance point, but it's not optimal for either. So what do you want? You want maximum power or maximum endurance or a good balance of the two? These types of things, instead of saying best, describe your terms for what your needs are. All right, so please read this section on our code of ethics, and please look at why you should join the forum. We have some real good reasons why you should join the forum. Like I said, you can sell your used canine equipment here, announce an event that you have coming up. If you're logging in and you get this forbidden error, I describe how to solve that. You'll need your IP address, and you can just click on this link and it'll show you your IP address. Then you can follow these instructions to correct that. Next, if you want to use our section on community tabs, let's say you do want to sell some used canine equipment, then here's where you would do that, okay? And we have a community tabs rule. Our community tabs rules identify everything, whether it's announcing a workshop, selling equipment, having a breeder announcement, whether you're a buyer looking for a dog or whether you're looking for a canine transporter. We have those rules in our group. I hope that you come check us out. We would love to have a platform where people can come and be professionals. I tried to streamline this as best I can to prevent an uncluttered platform. If you want to specifically talk about the American Pit Bull Terrier, go to breed topics, click on Pit Bull. If you want to talk about the herder, click on herder, okay, etc. Well, let me close this out. Thank you for tuning in. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Y'all have a blessed day.